is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's fired. He throws. It is.
And the agony of defeat.
Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Well, we've really done it all now. Welcome to the Past Our Prime podcast. I'm your host, Scott Johnson, joined as always by my two other co-hosts, Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman. And I know right now the country is as divided politically as we've ever come in politics. Mm-hmm. About the only other time I can think of that was close, at least in our lifetime, was 50 years ago from right now, July 8th, 1974. The cover of SI has then Vice President Gerald Ford on the cover. About a month later, he would be the 38th President of the United States after Richard Nixon resigned from office. You know, the whole I am not a crook Watergate thing.
The peace signs.
So if Trump and Biden have you down, just wait 50 years. Things will be much, much worse.
Yes. That's right. Right.
Do you guys remember the Watergate hearings?
Oh, I remember it specifically.
Vaguely.
I remember getting a haircut, and they had the television set on in the barbershop, and they were watching the hearings. I thought, it's really boring.
Yeah.
Because it's like watching, C-SPAN was basically
Right,
what it was. You're
right.
watching like 8 hours of,
My parents were glued to it. Yeah.
I just wanted to play, so I didn't care about that.
Yeah. I remember it being on. That's about it.
Yeah,
I don't remember. But you have to remember, this is before, the advent of 24/7 news.
Right.
So there was, back then, there was something about news being on all the time that made it seem like there was news.
Yeah, when the news came, when the
Right,
sound
like
came
something-
up, everyone said, "Stop!
Right,
Let's
something-
watch this."
there's a
Walter
bulletin,
Cronkite, yeah.
And that's how you found out about Kennedy or the moon landing. Those big moments.
Right.
This one, probably the people at MSNBC and Fox are like, they're on to something, having these really boring people on TV all day long. So anyway, Mark, start us off. You got an ad for us?
Yeah, right before the scorecard, there's a great ad with Don Shula in it, posing, in his Miami Dolphin colors, holding a football, his cleats on. But what's the ad focusing on? His socks.
Yes.
Those high socks, from Interwoven. And you look at that style, and it reminds me when I played high school football in the mid-'70s, like when this came out, that's what the coaches would wear. They'd wear the high socks with the shorts. I swear to God, my defensive coach, I could just put his face on top of Shula. That'd be the outfit he'd be wearing.
Yeah. I had those socks.
Yeah, like, what are they, tube socks or whatever they call them?
I used to love tube socks.
Yeah, right.
And all those stripes on them. Oh, well. Like I said, that's probably the least offensive stuff that you could find from the mid-'70s when it comes to fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, although it's not a good look for Don right there.
He thinks he's pretty hip.
Scorecard, Bill, what do you got?
I'm going to start with Ernie Vandeweghe. Comes from a pretty good family. We all know, everyone remember Kiki Vandeweghe? Of
course.
Yep.
Hall of
UCLA,
Fame,
Mark's
Hall of
guy.
Famer.
I decided to look up his kids because at the time these kids are like 10, 11 years old. They were young kids. So I thought, let's see, because here is Ernie Vandeweghe, married a former Miss America. Then he has 4 kids. We know, like I said, about Kiki. Heather Vandeweghe turned out to be a doctor. Tanya Vandeweghe swam in the 1976 Winter Olympics 100-meter backstroke. Bruck Vandeweghe won close to $400,000 on the AVP and International Tour. He won one tournament in his career with Adam Johnson as his partner. Anyone know who Adam Johnson is? He won 16 Pro Beach tourneys alongside Karch Kiraly. But it wasn't done for Bruck Vandeweghe. He was also a production assistant on Weekend at Bernie's. So I would say, as a mom and dad, when you look at your kids, you go, job well done.
Yeah.
It's amazing what those kids are able to do.
And Kiki, who had grown from 5'4", 110 pounds, to a 6'5", 185-pound sophomore basketball starter at Pacific Palisades High.
There you go.
Pally High, go Dolphins.
Yes, Daniels.
And he's still growing, and I've
Not
told
now.
this.
He's not.
No,
That'd be weird.
I told the story. Of
He's
Kiki.
9 feet now. Really.
When he came to UCLA, it wasn't like he was a star overnight. And I remember early in his junior year, people would boo him because he was struggling. But somewhere during that junior year, things just clicked. And then he just became an awesome basketball player that final year and a half, and then an NBA career, and then
that
the
was,
front office.
That was back when, that mid-range game was such a part of your Alex Englishes and stuff. They were just scoring threats. And Kiki was great.
Billy Knight
from
was that.
15 to 18 feet.
Though we may not get Kiki on the show after I tell this story, is that my memory is 1980 NCAA Finals, Larry Brown's first team, their Cinderella story, last team to make the tournament. They get all the way to the finals against Louisville. UCLA's up by 3 with like 4 minutes to go in the game, and they make a steal, and Kiki takes off from the free throw line, but he took off too early, and he missed the layup. So instead of a 5-point lead, and there's no 3-point shot then, Louisville goes down, hits a basket, and it's a 1-point game. So that 4-point switch changed the whole trajectory of the game, and then Louisville beats UCLA.
But you're not upset with that. So if we get him, you'll
the
talk
fact
to him
that I
and just
still
say,
remember
Kiki,
it
it's
now.
fine.
I still remember it now. I know.
Just throwing him under the bus.
Exactly.
Scorecard. Mark, you got one?
I got one where it's Henry Lawrence, and I love this story. Henry was drafted by the Raiders with the first pick, overall number 19 in 1974. He ended up playing 13 years with the Raiders, won a whole bunch of Super Bowls with the Raiders. And 3.
That's right.
That's a lot.
Do you remember him, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Great offensive lineman. And what I really remember is, in the article, they talk about him donating money back to his alma mater, Florida A&M, to set up a scholarship for future players, which I thought was amazing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing to me that was amazing is at John Madden's memorial, he sang "Amazing Grace," and it just brought a tear to everyone's eyes. So,
but that's a guy that came from nothing.
Like a great person.
He came from nothing, and he knew that Florida A&M helped him out, so he wanted to give back to help them out. I don't know how many more athletes do that. I'm sure there's more than we know, but still.
Drafted as a tackle, he played right tackle for the Raiders for years because
only team, right?
On the other side of the line was maybe the best duo line of all time in Art Shell and Gene Upshaw.
Wow, that's
right. On the left side.
His dad worked as a migrant farm worker, and he was only able to go to college because he got a scholarship.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
took advantage of it.
He did.
That's what they're for.
That's right.
As Mark mentioned, Henry Lawrence was one of those guys that got an opportunity and made the most of it, and then he paid it forward, hoping to give others that followed him at Florida A&M an opportunity as well by setting up a scholarship to his alma mater. This guy was a 2-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, played all 13 NFL seasons wearing the silver and black. Once a Raider, always a Raider, right, Henry?
Always a Raider.
Henry, we mentioned your college experience, but let's go back before college to high school, late 60s, early 70s in the Deep South. Many schools were segregated, including yours at Lincoln High. What year did that change for you, and how did that disrupt and change your life?
It changed right at the end of during my junior year. They decided to close my school. So I ended up doing my senior year at another school. They integrated the whole school system. And I ended up going to a school in Bradenton.
Hey, Henry?
Yes.
So I saw the documentary Through the Tunnel, which was remarkable. And so you go from Lincoln Memorial High School to Manatee High School. And your coach was talking about how he took, I think it was 12 players, 6 black players and 6 white players, and said, you guys need to be the rock here. You need to make this thing work. How did that all come about? How did that work for you? How did the meshing together work for you?
Well, it didn't work so well. And I don't remember the 6 blacks and 6 whites. A lot of things happen, that, we all don't, I don't remember. I do remember speaking out, and it ended up costing me. But it didn't work so well. It was a very I say venomous environment for athletes, especially black athletes at that school. And the other part, it was not good for the regular students either, because you come from an environment where you got students that are the cream of the crops in your environment, and then you go into a whole nother environment where you have to take the back seat. But that's not the bad part of it. It's not so bad as having to take the back seat, but then having to get stepped on is the worst part. You know, when you're not allowed to blossom like you are capable of doing so.
You mentioned that it didn't work out so well personally for you. Can you expand on that?
Well, I ended up being benched. After the second game, we had some dispute, and I spoke up, and my punishment was the third game. It all worked out. It all worked out because I just kept it going. Our coach had this poem that he used to do called "Keep It Going," and everything looked dim and bleak. You know, I just kept going, and when actually there was a couple of judges that did the doc, and he stopped. He said, "Well, if all this stuff was going on, why didn't you just quit?" I looked at him and I said, "Whoa, you know, I hadn't thought about that."
Yeah, that wasn't an option, right?
No, it wasn't, because I did decide to quit at A&M. See, the other part of it is, many things have changed, but there, you know, you got racism, and then you got discrimination, you know, and when you really, really analyze it, there's when you really analyze it,
yeah,
there really is not a major difference, because wrong is wrong.
What is the difference between racism and, say, just plain discrimination?
Well, racism could be, I guess, discrimination based on an ethnic group or a color, you know, say blacks and whites or Jews or Gentiles or Indians, anything like that, Hispanics. But discrimination is discrimination. It can be against anybody. I mean, against your own people. Right. And that's even worse than racism. You know, and I had to deal with that in a sense also. But so after my freshman year, I actually decided I was going to quit. And so I called home and told my mom, you know, I was leaving. And after the season, and my mom was always a realistic kind of, it is what it is kind of a person. And she said, well, she said, if you want to quit, you know, you quit. Well, you know, we didn't have a chance to go to school, you know, we worked hard and we had everything we needed. Say, but now if you want to quit, go ahead. I said, okay, I'll quit. She said, but now she qualified it though. She said, now if you're going to quit, she said, now let me tell you something. If you're going to quit, don't think you're going to come back here and set your ass up in lay your ass up in my house. You're going to get right back out there in that native field or the tater field or the orange grove, the strawberry field, and you're going to pick some more tomatoes, taters, or whatever it is they're going to be picking at the time. That's what you're going to be doing. So it was a game changer.
Yeah. Mom laid down the law.
Yeah.
So your parents, they were migrant workers, and you would work the farm too with them when you were young?
Oh yeah, I was almost born in the field. From the age of 5, 6, 7 years old, all the way up to my sophomore year in college. Strawberries, celery. Back then, down in Sarasota was one of the biggest celery producers in the country. Citrus, so we had a lot of citrus here. Picked oranges, grapefruits, tomatoes, picked them, and also worked the packing houses too. At 6th, 7th grade and 8th grade, I didn't go to school.
Now, looking back on that as an adult, do you think to yourself, my God, I called my mom and said, I'm going to quit playing this game. And you know what hard work looks like because you grew up right next to them. Does it make you appreciate what they did even more?
Well, absolutely. It made me appreciate it because I did it too. You know, it was like, you know, I'd line up in the tater field and Mom would line up beside me and she'd beat me every time. She'd pick up 10, 15 sacks ahead and then she'd turn around and come and get me and put me ahead and then get me again. And my older brother actually ended up becoming a migrant farm labor contractor. And he was one of the fastest pickers too. So he'd come sometime and line up with me and I couldn't beat none of them. So I had to find something that I could beat somebody with.
But man, that must be backbreaking work, is it not?
It was hard. It was hard, but when you're doing it, you're growing up with it. It's a part of life, and that's just what it was. So when I left the field one day, actually, and next day I think we were able to. I think might have been the first time we caught a plane or something. I caught a bus. I don't know how I got back, but the next couple of days I was on the football field playing football. With no preparation, no training, no previous, organized football at all, me and my brother. And he was pretty darn good too.
Do you think all that work as a migrant worker, as a kid growing up, helped you as a football player? Being tough, having to endure. Did those attributes you got as a kid really help you when you played football?
It played a big part. It played a big part because I wanted to win. There's a thing about mindset, and I think that a lot of people want to you have certain games and certain things where teams are playing basketball, football, whatever, and you just know, oh, they're gonna crush them, and you look around and these guys with a whole different mindset, a different kind of emotion, and they end up kicking their butt. You say, well, damn, how did that happen? Well, it's a mindset, and I think that the mind, along with emotions in sports, I think you cannot leave out emotions. Coach Madden used to have he phrased a corn to control the fanaticism, and to have controlled fanaticism, you got to have some emotion. and he was down on all his players, they're doing stupid stuff. He didn't appreciate it. He didn't tolerate it. But he wanted that fanaticism. He wanted that intensity.
Mm-hmm.
If you got intensity in certain things, you got to have intensity. Certain sports, you got to have it. All sports don't require it, but all of them require focus.
Now, going back to Lincoln, I know there's a lot of people that probably helped you along the way, but talk to me about Coach Shannon and the impact that he made on your life.
Well, Coach Shannon was the head coach. And he was about 5'2". He still is. Coach Shannon is 102 years old now.
Oh my God.
He's still around. And then my other coach, my line coach, when I started out, Coach Jimmy Cromartie, he's I think he's in the late 90s. They're still with us. But he had this thing that he got from Jake Gaither, the coach of Florida A&M, to kill a mosquito with an axe. And he would walk around. He had a half a baseball bat that he'd have tape all the way around it so you don't get splinters in your ass. But he had a half a base. The bat was almost bigger than him. And he used it sometimes.
How so?
How so? Use your imagination. We're playing a game and we're on the field and hell, I got 3 sacks. We go in at halftime and we're behind. I think 6-7. We're behind by field goal, a point, something like that. And he came in the locker room and he never raised his voice. I never heard him to this day raise his voice, but he talked to everybody. And then he looked at everybody and I said, I'm good. I'm back in the corner. I got 3 sacks. I'm all right. And then he had everybody line up. And he went down the line with that half a baseball bat.
Oh my God.
And we went back out. We won the game.
So was there ever the fear on the field, like, oh no, I'm going to get the bat?
Well, no, you didn't think about that because you were motivated to go out and give your all. And during that time, we had players that when I started out, I couldn't carry some of these guys' jock scraps, but it's a matter of fortitude, I guess, intensity, and continuing, and just not giving up, and keep trying. And I ended up making it through the pack, but we had guys that played basketball, baseball, and football, would catch 4 or 5 touchdowns, would get 4 or 5 interceptions. We had another one would run for 4, 5, 6 touchdowns, get 4 or 5 interceptions. And we had one guy, he was if I could compare him, tell you what he was like, you take Lawrence Taylor and crank it up another notch.
Oh.
His name was Willie Jones. He was drafted by the Dolphins in 1972 and never went and played with him. He was a linebacker in the 4th round. And that was high back then. And he never played. He went to Canada and went up and played with Leon McQuay up there, and then he went to Memphis. But I spoke with the Raiders, and I said, hey, why don't y'all sign my homeboy? And Steve Altmaier said, well, who is it? I gave him the information. We'll get back to you. He come back to me the next day. He said, we'll take him. Mm-hmm. And the Raiders would have signed. This was like 1974, 75, 76, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. But he didn't go. And when I came back to Florida, I asked him, I said, hey, man, I said, why you didn't come to the NFL? Why you didn't come to the Raiders? And why you didn't go? And he said, oh, man, I was on that shit, Well, that shit, destroyed a lot of lives. The drugs. Guys, some guys, they couldn't not abort it. They couldn't say no. Yeah. But it's unfortunate. And I'm glad that, I was able to say no, tried it, say this ain't for me. But my mom used to always say there's one boss. When you really want to boil down to it, that's the boss. When you deal with him, that it's the real boss, man. And it's so true. You can look around and just see it. Bosses everybody say, I want you to go get some more so I can get you back high, get you back drunk or whatever.
Henry, you go to Florida A&M, and back then getting drafted out of small schools to play in the NFL didn't have a high success rate. But in '74, Raiders head coach John Madden watches you play in the Senior Bowl, and he liked what he saw, didn't he?
Everybody liked what they saw.
And what did they see?
I didn't know they were liking it, huh?
I said, and what did they like? What did they like?
Well, I blocked some guys, and of course, Ed Too Tall Jones, he was the #1 pick for the whole NFL, right. And he was a monster. And you had Fred Cook, you had Don Reese. I mean, you had some monsters, some terrorists. And I went to the Senior Bowl. I guess I'm thinking, from what I think I understand, I don't know for a fact, but I think the NFL have something to do with some of the players they want to get another look at and different stuff. But the other part is, because of that, there was this myth that had existed in the NFL that dealing with the black colleges. And the thing is the theory was that the black colleges, the black guys from the black colleges, they hadn't been coached well, and they hadn't played in a real competition. So the other part of it is, when you're trying to do a contract, so we can't pay you what we paid a guy, that drafted two drafts behind you, because you ain't been coached and you ain't played no real competition. So we're gonna pay you less. Mm-hmm. That's what the basic theory was, and I didn't realize that part. But when I got they called me to the phone, and Coach Madden said, hey, you had this deep burly boy, this is John Madden under the old Raiders. We just drafted you in the 1st round. And I screamed. And so they had me on the plane. And when I got there, Coach Madden pulled me in the restaurant, like that Miller Lite commercial he used to do. He'd bust through that paper. He didn't bust through the paper, but he was sitting at the table with that, hey! And he was screaming, where did you learn to pass protect like that? You look like you've been coached. So I later learned the dynamics of the way he was phrasing that, because the theory was that black kids from the black colleges weren't coached well. And of course, during that time, not to throw it in, we had the winningest coach in total football period in black college, which was Coach Eddie Robinson.
Right.
He was the winningest coach in football period, but we hadn't been coached very well. So now, when you look around, the gate has been open. They can't close the gate now, even with quarterbacks. Look back, you had Eldridge Dickey, who was the first #1 black quarterback to come out into the NFL, and he actually was pegged in starting ahead of Ken Stabler. And you probably don't even know that, do you?
No.
No.
Nope.
Well, he was the #1 draft pick from Tennessee State. Claude Humphrey came out #1 also, went to Atlanta, and he beat Ken Stabler out.
So when you get drafted by the Raiders, you take some of that money and you give it back to Florida A&M to set up a scholarship. How did that come about? Why did you do that?
Well, you know what? I don't even remember what it was. I just felt I needed to give something back to the school. I mean, I don't think any athlete had ever done it, and I don't know what happened. I just did it, and I can't explain that to you, but it was from the bottom of my heart, and I don't even remember, what it was. But I felt the need to give back to my school, and of course, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. My check was $1,700 a game, and I got fined $500 one week, and I cried all week, man. I cried all week. I'm out there, $1,200. No, they take my money like this. But I can't explain that. I come from a giving environment. My mom, my grandmama, my uncles, my daddies, my brothers, my aunties, everybody. They had a little restaurant, and people come there. They ain't got no money. Say, look, Miss Earl, I'm Miss Geneva. I ain't got no money, but can I eat? And they said, I'll bring you money later. And they ate. They brought the money back. It was okay. But if they didn't, it wasn't no skin off the skin, because they needed to eat. And I think that we're missing that in this whole environment in this country, where people are so off track and people are so thinking about all of the other books.
Hey, Henry, I hear you loud and clear. John Madden said that you and he had a special relationship. He couldn't explain why, but he was just fond of you, and the feeling was mutual, wasn't it?
We clicked from day one. And he told me, I said, where did you learn? I said, well, my coach, he said, you're going to be a great player. And we just, and of course, his boys was the glue. We like from day one when they came to practice, I spent time with them. That's just me, and nobody else was doing that. And I hung out with them. I spent time with them, and I became a part of the family. And his wife, Virginia, I love her dearly to this day. I went out, spent some time, and I went out. It just hurts me to even think about it, but he was a great man. And he was a giving man. He was a brilliant man. A lot of people know they think he had a great football mind, but he had a great business mind also. The guy was a monster in a good way. Right. He did so many things for so many people.
At John's memorial, you sang "Amazing Grace." How did that come about? Why did you pick that song, or did you pick the song and just the emotion that you sang it? I saw the tears in the crowd. It was incredible.
You didn't see the tears in my eyes, did you? I picked that song because Coach Madden, from day one, there was that connection. And Coach Madden, he endeared a lot of people, not just players, but just people in regular everyday life. People never even realize the things that Coach Madden did for people. And not necessarily in football, but the things that he did. The man had biggest heart, and he did so many things, and he embraced me, and he looked beyond my faults. And that's where I wrote that song. It's called "He Looked Beyond My Faults." I know it's the Amazing Grace. There'll always be, and it goes like, Amazing Grace shall always be my song of praise. For it was grace that brought my liberty. But I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond all my faults and saw my needs. And that's Coach Madden, but that's also our good Lord and Savior. He looked beyond our faults. All we got to do is say, hey, I'm ready, to receive you. But Coach Madden, and he was a man of God. I just loved him. And I had to be a part of it. And they wouldn't let me not be a part of it. So I had to be involved in it.
Well, I can understand why there were tears.
Yeah, thanks for belting that out. You have a beautiful voice, Henry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And also, let me ask you, you were also close with Al Davis. What did you learn about Mr. Davis, and how did he help you out?
He was vicious. He was vicious, but and he was. It's like, my guys, if you better stay in line or he was gonna punish you. And he had this thing, and I don't care if you get out of line, he'll figure out a way to straighten you out. And sometimes I think there may have been to excess, and I think to excess because I think in some ways there are a lot of those things, his thoughts and stuff that kind of hurt, because the Raiders had some great teams, and insisted on a certain kind of offense. And I think that and Coach Madden, was in line with that. But there are some other things that I think that he would have done if you'd had, full reign. But we just had some great teams, we had some great seasons. But I look back and I said, damn, we should have won that game. We should have won that game. We should have won that game. But because at back that time, the Raiders were so dominant from a standpoint of size, and the only other team that kind of fell in that category were the Washington Redskins. They were big. They were the Hogs. And the Rams, they had some big guys. But everybody else had little good guys. Linemen were 255 pounds. And I was hanging out with L.C. Greenwood at the Hall of Fame. And I said, man, you made me respect you. Because I wasn't a starter yet, but we were playing preseason, and I was pounding on him. And we were in Berkeley Field, and he got in his gap. And I said, oh, I'm going to kill this sucker now. And George Blanda was the quarterback. And I came down on LC, and LC did a old pro okie doke on me. And all I saw was the back of his jersey. And when he got to George Blanda, I just knew he was going to kill him. And you know what he did? He just wrapped his arm around him and grabbed him. And just, he didn't hit him. He just grabbed him. He sacked him, but He just grabbed him. And when he was coming back to the line, he had those yellow shoes on. He pointed his finger at me. He said, oh, boy. He said, you can't do that on me. I'll be gone. And I made him remember that. He said, man, I couldn't let you young bucks be beating up on me. I was only 239 pounds. That's all you. He was 239 pounds.
Wow.
But the other part of it is even in those games, we didn't take advantage of that. Joe Green would get in that left gap because he knew he was going to run it to the left. But then, bam, and even when they had Bob Brown's the most awesome offensive tackle lineman ever in the history of the NFL. And you don't run the football over there. You run it the boat because you got two of the best, Art Shell and Bob Brown. Mm-hmm. Then you had Gene Upshaw. And then, of course, George Bueller was a German tank. He was a great blocker, too. So we didn't take advantage of that during that time. So that period passed by us. But we had some good times. We had some good games, and I treasure it. But Coach Madden, he would lay it out, and he was the greatest teacher that I had. Him and my college coach, Coach Jim Williams, they would teach. They would show, hey, this is, and you totally understood it. Just like he did on the network when he was announcing games. You see how he would lay it out. You had more women come to the NFL to watch the NFL because of Coach Madden than anybody.
Right.
Because he laid it out. You totally understood. what the deal was. And I went against him 1 year. I think I still was a player. We was in Vegas, and we were calling the game, the Super Bowl, and and I'm being sporty. He told him exactly what's going to happen. I said, well, I kind of disagreed, and I said, well, I'll never disagree with Coach Madden again. I said to him, I said, man, he had it down to science, but he was just awesome.
Do you have a favorite memory as a Raider? Is it one of the Super Bowls? Is it something else?
I do. One was my encounter with Mr. Davis, Al Davis. we were in New Orleans getting ready to play the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course I had Claude Humphrey during the season. They beat us. I thought I had like 4 or 5 sacks. It was only 3.5, but he took me to school and he talked the whole game. Man, damn, shut up, man. Damn, homeboy, you trying to kill me? And bam, sack. And so I blocked him one time and I knocked him down in the turf. I'm on top of him. His arm was about 4 feet long. No, it was long. And Jim Plunkett ran out. He reached out. I'm on top of him and he got that sack. So after the game, I mean, I played him in Atlanta as a non-starter. And he said, homeboy, look, he said, don't get down on yourself. He said, because I've been watching you ever since you've been in line. He said, you've been, excuse my friend. He said, you've been getting fucked. He said, you've been the best tackle in the league since you've been in the lineup. He said, and you're not getting that recognition. He said, but don't get down on yourself because I studied this game. And I knew that if I kept coming and Plunkett was going to set, and then he was going to step back again. And so I looked at the film afterwards and damn if he wasn't right. I mean, I'm blocking him. I said, damn, I'm blocking this dude. But that's what was happening. So we get ready for the Super Bowl, and we got Philadelphia again. So I'm in the gym pumping everything. I lift every iron in there. I did every exercise. And so we in New Orleans, and Coach Mr. Davis, he knew all his players. He would talk to them, and he would get their opinion about stuff. And the man knew his stuff. So I'm in the training room getting taped. I'm in the zone now because I got my pads on. So I'm in another zone. Then don't mess with me. And he comes in. I said, well, tell me this. What he popped in, with that New York accent. What do you think about? I don't remember who it was. He was actually about something or somebody. And I told him what I thought. And he barked at me. All right, that's her. And I went off on him. I said, what the blank you asked me for? You asked me what I think. You asked me what you, and I was like screaming at him. And he looked at me. He said, you're crazy. He stumped out the room. And Dr. Rosenfeld was standing there. That was his ace coon boon, the orthopedic surgeon. He was cracking up. But I was in that zone. I said, he asked me, didn't he? And I said, yeah, he asked me. So it was something. It was something. But yeah, I in that game I said, well, I'm not gonna ride him around the horn. I'm just gonna set him short. And so I did. And so it got to a point where I think he got frustrated and he head slapped me, which was illegal then. And the ref threw the flag, and he picked the flag up and threw it at the ref. I said, ow, I got it. So that was it.
And of course, you guys go on to win that game. So all was forgotten about your little pregame discussion with Al Davis. Just win, baby, right?
Just win. Just win.
I'm going to ask you, Henry, about one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history, which is Marcus Allen's cutback 74-yard run, which was more like about 104 yards. As you guys,
when he reversed field.
Yeah. Tell me about that play.
It was a 17 bob trail, and it's a double team, the tight end and type of double teams, the defensive end, and the running back does a bob. We call it a bob block. He blocks the linebacker, and he come behind and he blocked. But when he came, and the backside clears, and so I'm on the backside. And so when we ran the play, then I came down the line to seal the backside, and the front side was clogged up, and so he decided to reverse field and come back my way, and the rest is history. They say he ran a 4.8, but I really believe in that game, on that run, Marcus was running probably a 4.240.
Yeah, he ran past Cliff Branch.
play.
People don't do that.
Yeah, it was a great play. And Cliff was very smart. That's an ideal example of smart football. Instead of trying to go and like cut the guy down, Cliff just bumped him, just to knock him off.
Just enough. Yep.
And that was enough. And that's how football's supposed to be played. Smart.
Right.
I don't like that stupid stuff.
You guys lost to the Redskins earlier in the season.
We did.
And I think you're even underdogs in the Super Bowl, and you just blow them out. As a Raiders fan, I think that team is one of the more underrated teams of all time. I mean, you guys, when you got Mike Haynes, that defense was loaded. Your offense was loaded.
Man.
I mean, you guys had Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers everywhere.
Man, it was awesome. We did okay in our defense, man. I can't even explain that. And you had that Charlie Summers over there, and they had his mentality, and it's like take no prisoners. So it was a whole different scenario.
And you said play smart, and that whole Jack Squirick touchdown is an example of that, because the Redskins ran a play like that in the first game that worked, and so they were ready for it. And
yeah,
that's Jack with that great TD, and the game's basically over at halftime.
Yeah, Charlie had him ready, and he had him ready for that play. And God bless the dead. He'll be missed. He was a great player too. Jack was.
Yes.
Henry,
I just feel blessed.
So Henry, we do this little trivia thing called 50-50. I'm going to give you a 50% chance of getting a trivia question right. Okay. From someone involved.
I don't know nothing. I don't know.
No, this one, it's A or B. You won't, it's a true or false. So we lost the great actor Carl Weathers this year. Apollo Creed. Everyone knows Carl. True or false?
Yeah.
Carl played for the Raiders at one
True.
time. You're absolutely right.
Carl played for the Raiders, and I saw him this past year. We got a chance to talk for a minute, and he was a great one. I had a chance to visit with him. So, wow. Wow. We had some great ones.
You know, it's funny. I see this quote that they were asked John Madden why he cut him in 1971, just shortly after the season started, and he said he was too sensitive, which.
Oh, Fred. I mean, Carl.
Yeah, Madden said that about Carl. He was too sensitive, so he got it.
John Madden and Al Davis set the tone. Yep. Once a Raider, always a Raider.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Davis. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. When he was getting ready to cut me, he says, "Charlie is gonna be upset." He said, "But yeah," you said, "You've been a great Raider." Great Raider. And at that point, and a person can easily say this, but at that point, I was better than I'd ever been in my whole career. But he had told me, baby, he was going to punish me. But he said, "You've been a great Raider." And I used to say, why you cutting me? And he wouldn't answer. So I finally, and you want to know why? You want to know why? I won't tell you what he told me why, but I'll tell you another time.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Henry.
That's called a tease.
Okay.
Yes.
That's called a tease, Henry.
Yes.
Hey, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Henry Lawrence, one of the all-time Raider greats, played with Art Shell and Gene Upshaw on the same line, Kenny Stabler at quarterback. And man, he almost quits playing football. And now he looks back and he's got 3 Super Bowl rings.
Scott, do you remember him playing?
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell your excitement in your voice when you were talking to him. So you remember him, and you remember how great he was.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking my wheelhouse now. 70s Raiders football. I mean, I couldn't tell you who the Raiders offensive line is now, but I could go, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Jim Otto was the center, replaced by Dave Dolby, George Bueller, and John Vella, and they drafted Henry Lawrence. And I remember my
Mhm.
dad saying, my gosh, we already have, this great line. Why would we spend because back then they were a player away or so.
Yeah.
Right.
And it worked out very well. And the other thing that he said, which is just so nice that we don't think this way anymore, but that black players that went to small schools hadn't been coached.
Right.
And so they got you. So there, in my estimation, that's the difference between racism. Racism means they wouldn't draft you because you're black. Discrimination means they drafted you, but they think you're stupid because you're black. And we're gonna fix that. And Henry showed right away. Right, Madden goes, "Oh my gosh, you've been coached," and we had to dispel a lot of those preconceived notions. Remember, you couldn't have black quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago where people were saying that they
Steve
can't.
McNair, yeah, when he
Right?
was at Black College.
So
I was gonna, so I just thought, here's a guy that almost quits, then he gets drafted. I wonder what his mom said.
I know.
Did she ever look back and go, yeah, this is the guy,
I just think, once again, with most of these interviews, the fact that these guys just throw out, oh, LC Greenwood.
I know.
Like,
yeah, we're having dinner together. And
I know
it's like,
who LC Greenwood is,
Yeah. I liked how he sang too.
Oh, that was special.
That's
wasn't it?
awesome, man.
And then he sang on the show. That was
Yeah, that was
Very cool.
exactly what he sang at Madden's funeral.
Yep.
That
An
was so
inside
cool.
look. Very nice. All right, let's move on.
Let's go to They Said It, and I've got one. Ray Scott, Detroit Pistons coach, asked which NBA team was hurt most by the expansion draft to stock the New Orleans franchise. He said, New Orleans.
Oh,
boy.
Poor New Orleans. Those poor Jazz.
Yep. Mark, what do you got?
Well, I got Tug McGraw, the famed New York Mets pitcher. When asked whether he favors grass or artificial surfaces, I don't know. I never smoked AstroTurf.
Billy, you got one?
Yeah, Carol Mann, she's the president of the Pro Golf Board, explaining why she thinks the men's tour has peaked and the women are taking over. Just one word: legs. Yes.
ZZ Top would agree.
Exactly. But a lot part of that is true, especially nowadays.
An ace came out of the pack, pumping through the Sierra for 7 days and 475 miles, the second longest bike race in U.S. history, met unbelieving cops and unyielding semis. The finish line of the third stage of this race was in the middle of Carson City, Nevada, but nobody seemed to know it. No traffic had been stopped, no detours of anything, just carry on as these bike riders come zooming into town. The people hadn't been notified. There was a panic as the cyclists were approaching. And then as they came into sight, a woman walked right into harm's way, intent on getting into the Nevada state legislature. Just before a collision, a bystander grabbed her and pulled her out of harm's way. The lady was unapologetic. The government's falling apart, she said, and here are all these damn bicycles. So she seemed like a happy person. But yeah, maybe a little organization would have helped both the pedestrians and the guys on the bikes, because a few of them took their lives in their hands with this race.
Yeah, well, bumped over by semis, and I mean, unbelievable that they could do that.
Well, they had a 108-mile stage, and the riders had gone up 5,000 feet of elevation, and now they're coming to town at 30 miles an hour. I mean, that's like, whew, you can get seriously hurt by that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to a cycling race, but when they come zipping by you, I'm telling you, 30. We because we drive cars and all stuff, but a guy on a bike going 40 that zips by you, you hear,
you do.
They're going. So that hits this lady in the hat. She's going down.
I know. And she could have killed somebody,
right.
Not just herself.
In 1962, there were 60 competitive races in Northern California. By 1974, there were over 1,000. Wow. So it was taking hold. But in this race, within a stage at Monitor Pass in California, the first four finishers were Mike Neal, 18-year-old George Mount of Lafayette, California, John Timbers, 29, of Tucson, and appearing precipitately around a bend, a huge yellow truck pulling a flatbed flatbed trailer carrying heavy equipment, which almost rode the first 3 guys down. So you got these. Oh, look, here comes
And some guy just trying to get his job done on his flatbread, you know. But the thing is, and you look at the tour participants, they had to pay their own travel expenses and even room and board. So there was no reason to bike, just only reason because you loved it.
Right.
Because you weren't getting anything.
I was just going to say that Neil is from the winner from Berkeley, California, and for finishing the Sierra Tour on top in every department, he received a number of tires and pumps and jerseys from various donors. To the victors go their spoils. All right, let's move on. That was fun. Warning, dangerous slurves ahead. That is the pitch from Atlanta as league-leading Buzz Capra and his fellow analysts do their best to cure a case of acrophobia. The 74 Braves were not supposed to be good coming into the season. Henry Aaron would soon eclipse the Braves' record, but not much else after that. But they have won 25 of 33 games and gone ahead of the Cincinnati Reds. Mm-hmm. Now, they both were trailing the Dodgers, who were setting an incredible pace that year. But 2 of the reasons why were Buzz Capra, who won 16 of his 31 career games this year by leading the National League in ERA at 2.28, and the other pitcher who had a career was our guest back on April 15th, Tom House, or in the article, Thomas Ross Puma House. I wish I had known about this Puma nickname when we talked to him. I reached out to Tom, and House told me that Braves and Tiger slugger Darrell Evans called him Puma for his cat-like reflexes on the mound. Obviously an over-evaluation, according to Tom. So, Capra was drafted by the Mets in '69, the 625th player taken. Last year in New York, he came out of the pen, and against the Reds in the NLCS, he got to warm up twice. In the World Series, he says, I did even better. I got to warm up 5 times.
And the thing is, he had talked about, because he got to pitch in the All-Star game, or he got to play in the All-Star game, I guess. And his old manager was Yogi Berra. And Yogi Berra still did, he picked him, but he still didn't let him pitch.
That's right.
He still let him pitch.
Right.
Yep. Do you know in the month of June, Capra was 6-0 with a 1.05 ERA?
Wow.
3 shutouts.
Wow.
That's just dominant.
That's just dominant. Yeah,
well, did you read about what he...
And think of that, so then that's leading right into the All-Star game. And you've got the hottest, best pitcher in baseball right now. But I looked at the box score from that, and I'm pretty sure they used 4 pitchers.
Yes, they did.
Now they use 9
Every
or 10.
one of them, yeah.
The whole thing
Everyone
is now,
gets to pitch.
That wasn't the case back then. Back then, they were playing to win. And if your All-Star outfield was Carl Yastrzemski and Reggie Jackson and Frank Robinson.
They played.
And
9
innings.
Pitchers went 3 innings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. The starter went that's how I remember.
Yeah.
But I liked how Buzz Capra said when he was a schoolboy, he went bare-chested to the freezing cold garage each morning to hang for several minutes from an iron bar. His father had a theory it would make him grow taller. He finished at 5'10". I can tell you from experience it doesn't work.
Well, Capra began the year as a reliever. It was the injury to Ron Reed that got him into the rotation.
I love Ron Reed too. I love Buzz Capra. I just love that name.
I had that baseball
card
of him and Catfish Hunter, league leaders, the 1975.
Wow, did you really?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's cool.
Though the Braves are not yet ready to start thinking pennant, Capra does have one great notion in mind for the Mets manager, Yogi Berra, the man who ignored him all those long months in New York. What I'd like to do, he said, is make Yogi pick me for the All-Star team.
Yeah.
He did, in fact, but as Bill mentioned, he did get picked, but Yogi, once again, didn't pitch him.
And you wonder why, because he was having an amazing season.
Yeah.
So it's like, did Yogi not find a spot to get him in, or did he not like him, or was it just, no, I'm not just, because obviously.
I think the thinking back then was, I'm not.
If I need you, I'll use you.
I'm not pitching Buzz Capra over Steve Carlton.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right?
No matter what their years were.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed coming, because you're not playing.
I wonder if he got to warm up, though. If he got to throw 6 pitches, that's,
Right. In Defense of the Competitive Urge by Gerald R. Ford, with John Underwood as his co-author. But yeah, this was an article by then Vice President and future president of our country, the 38th president of the United States, Gerald Ford, who played football at Michigan, and he was good. As a center, he was the MVP of the team, which seems kind of crazy. In 1934, he turned down offers to play for the Lions and the Packers to play pro football, instead going to Yale to serve as boxing coach and assistant football coach. While attending Yale, of boxing, I knew next to nothing. No, that's not right, he said. I knew absolutely nothing. The reason I make reference to those winning seasons at Michigan is that we have been asked to swallow a lot of home-cooked psychology in recent years that winning isn't all that important anymore, whether on the athletic field or in any other field, national and international. I don't buy that for a minute. It's not enough to just compete. Winning is very important, maybe more important than ever. So that was the philosophy many had back 50 years ago. Now it's a little bit more of the participation.
Right. What's interesting when he talks about the winning, so he was the center and linebacker on the team. So in 32 and 33, they're undefeated. One of the best teams in the country. In 34, I think he was named team captain, and they only won one game that year.
They were horrible.
So going from like this juggernaut to
Top of the world.
Day,
Top of the world. I liked how he told stories in it. So he tells a story about, as a young man, I took up skiing in order to get to know a certain young lady better. She happened to be a devotee, and I an eager beginner. I lost the girl, but I learned to ski. The subject used to be a sensitive one with my wife, who came along afterward, but I reminded her that it was the instructive athletics, not competitive athletics. The important thing was I learned how to ski. He just seemed like he had a real fun, demeanor about him.
Yeah.
It's funny. He had a sense of humor, too. It was funny. He was talking about, he was a House Minority Leader when he got into politics, and he was an adversary of LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And LBJ once said, there's nothing wrong with Jerry Ford except for that he played football too long without his helmet.
Yeah.
And
But,
remember, Chevy Chase would make fun of him on Saturday
That's what I'm saying.
Night
That's
Live.
the only thing I knew about Gerald Ford is he was always falling off planes because the way Chevy Chase did it.
Right.
So I always thought, he just always fell over.
Which I don't think was true.
I know, he
actually.
did
I
like
think
once
maybe
or something
once
like
or
that.
something.
Yeah.
But Chevy just took that.
Yeah,
and
everywhere
ran
he went,
with
he'd
it.
fall off.
Live from New York. It was funny then, and 50 years later, it's still funny.
Ford played football. Dwight Eisenhower was a college football player. A lot of presidents. In fact, I think with Eisenhower, he got hurt badly in a game by Jim Thorpe, I want to say, and that kind of derailed his career. But
he writes, I have to admit to a certain empathetic thrill in reading about all the money being tossed around today in sports. It takes me back to the time I was offered a big money deal to play for the Packers, $200 a game, with a 14-game schedule by Curly Lambeau, of Lambeau Field. So he was offered basically $3,000 to play a season of football and turned it down.
yeah, but that's what a lawyer probably made back then.
Probably, right. Yeah.
Came out with less injury.
Talking about he was in China for a few years prior to the article. And he saw all the basketball courts that they had there. And then he says that, he refers that, they're going to have in no time, they're going to have a Chinese Wilt Chamberlain. And decades later, Yao Ming.
That's right. I was thinking the same thing. And then he was a little wrong on this one. He said, I have my doubts about the advisability of the WFL telecasting games on weeknights, in effect invading the time and territory of high schools. We already have legislation preventing Friday night NFL telecasts. I don't know if the Congress will sit still for Thursday night telecasts. It might cut the revenue of high school sports. NFL's on every day of the week this year. At one time on because Wednesday's Christmas, and they now got games. So it's every day of the week this year. So I don't think that holds up now.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in like 10 years they're like the AFC North plays on Mondays, the AFC South plays on Tuesdays. They just have
take every
day.
Yep.
I mean, the only day you don't have football is Tuesday and Wednesdays, some colleges, because that's how we get on television is by playing games Tuesday, Wednesday. But NFL plays every day except for Friday and Tuesday, Wednesday, I guess.
But I think there's a Wednesday game because it's Christmas this year, and there is Friday games. And Friday was always the hub of high school, but now the NFL said, forget about that.
Yeah. They don't play Saturdays. They don't go up against college football.
Okay.
So
and they do later in the season once it is over. Okay,
over.
There you go.
So that Army-Navy game ends, and then
NFL.
They take over. Ring of Bright Marbles by Mark Cram. Did either of you guys play marbles as a kid?
I did.
Did you?
I did, yeah. It was fun. There was one, it was the steelhead one. It was just the silver thick one, and that's the one you tried to win. But they still have this. This tournament is Wildwood, New Jersey. It still goes on to this day, but you have to be a kid between 7 and 15 years old. But to just be, while they did it in Wildwood, and people were upset about that because it was all old people, and the old people, so they don't like to see us anyhow. But the kids came out there. They have a
now, Billy, you
tournament.
Identify as a 10-year-old. Maybe you.
I
could
do.
be in this
I could
tournament.
get in that. I probably still. I mean, it's
that kid from Longwood, New Jersey. He sucks. You could take.
I could punk. And you get a $600 scholarship. I go back to school. No, it was fun.
Stanford, here we come.
Here we come. I'll put another application plus Oregon State and Washington. God knows why I would even did that, but I did.
I never played
on
marbles,
a marble
okay?
On a marble scholarship.
Imagine walking with your Letterman jacket.
Oh God,
yeah.
I'm captain of the marbles team.
Yeah. Just walk around, just flicking my marbles everywhere.
right.
Yeah, there you go.
See, I've
Drop
never
them on
played
the-
it. I don't
Every
understand the
girl on
rules.
campus.
Right, exactly. Oh, there's
So,
Bill.
There's Bill. He's a marble champion.
I mean, honestly, I'm shocked they still have it because unless it's on a tablet or a phone or something like that, 7-year-olds would be like, marbles? What's that?
But in that area, I'm assuming it has been 50 years, so I'm assuming it's a big event.
Yeah.
So it's like they
Yeah.
used to have the soapbox derby
I was just going
type
to say,
things.
kind of like that.
You know.
Part 2 of A False Spring by Pat Jordan. He wrote a book called A False Spring. These are some excerpts from that book. I enjoyed it very much. He talks about being signed to a big bonus. So there's obviously, this is in the late 50s. There are high hopes for him having a major league career, but it's not going so well for Mr. Jordan. He says, I would pitch 4, 5, 6 innings of beautiful baseball, and then I would lose it all. Not all, really. I never lost the speed, but the control. I would not walk a hitter for 5 innings or 6 innings or 8 innings. One time, I had a no-hitter for 6 innings and then opened the 7th by walking 4 in a row. He's throwing a no-hitter. His shortstop yelled, throw strikes. I glared at him. He was forced to change his delivery, and it scared him that he'd never be able to throw naturally again with any velocity or control. One game with Joe Torre as his catcher, it started to work, and he kept throwing right to the target nice and easy, over and over and over. The game ended, and Torre came up to him to shake his hand and said, now you look like a pitcher. I had pitched a 2-hit shutout. So, I mean, you really see the highs and lows, right? He basically is starting to head towards what we now know is the yips. But Steve Blass, as we talked about earlier, it once the muscle memory of doing something athletic is gone and you have to think about how to throw the baseball, you're in trouble.
But you have to go back, though, Scott. Remember, Joe Torre was the one in our last episode that he almost got in a fight with.
Yeah.
And there's Torre again catching him. So he went from the lows with Torre to all of a sudden a really big high with him.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's such a mental, game, and even the worst pitcher in baseball can throw a 2-out shutout on one start.
Yep.
Which is the beauty of baseball.
Yeah, Dakota Weaver.
It's the only sport where the worst team in that sport can beat the best team in that sport on any day.
Right. I mean,
doesn't
it's a
happen, eh?
shock if a 2-12 football team beats a 12-2 football team.
Right.
It's shocking. It's not shocking. It's almost it's actually even shocking. Like if the Celtics were to lose, to Portland, right? That would be pretty shocking. But not in baseball.
The Chicago White Sox have to beat somebody.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they'll-
I mean, and
not
they
very
have.
often, but something.
They have won 17 games already this year.
They have. They're just about ready to go off on
and
a
we're
big
recording
streak.
this on June 11th. This is coming out July 8th.
Yeah.
And they
They may
probably
have
have
20.
19
Yeah,
wins
yeah.
by now.
I'm saying 20. I'll say they're up to 20.
And the
by
thing
now.
is, at least with that White Sox team, you have no idea. They pitch crappy game after crappy game. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a guy will come out and throw like 7 innings of 1-run ball, and you're like, the heck, what happened?
Yeah. Well,
So
end
that's
up
it.
losing that game anyway. Just like last night.
Yeah, they did.
And they're not even guaranteed the number one.
But
pick now.
I liked when we're getting back to Pat Jordan when he said about he liked to pitch on the road because they used to shout, keep the bum in there. All the fans would be excited to have him in the game, and the manager would just say, "Don't worry." He'd want to smile and put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, son. You can pitch as long as you like. They love you in Keokuk.
He owns Keokuk.
Yeah. And who didn't in those days?
Right. More baseball. 3 Rivers, 2 strikes. 3 months into the 74 season, the Pittsburgh Pirates, who many picked preseason to win the division, had lost 6 of 7, and instead of fighting for the division, instead are fighting to stay out of last place, and the players aren't becoming fans of their skipper, Danny Murtaugh. When Roberto Clemente was killed, Willie Stargell was called upon to lead the Pirates both physically with his bat and emotionally with his personality. When hitting, he can lift the team, but whether he is hitting or not, his unassuming personality is not the kind to inspire his teammates. The front office made him the team captain, says Doc Ellis. There's no way Willie wants to be captain. He don't want to go talking to players for his manager. He's his own man. So I find this fascinating because
Willie Stargell was Pittsburgh at a point.
For sure he was. And if there's one thing that I remembered, because Willie Stargell's end of his career, I don't know if it was his last year, but 1979, MVP with Keith Hernandez. The We Are Family team. And if there's one thing you would say about Willie Stargell was that he was a leader.
Yeah.
He got that team, he put them on their back, and he got them all to play, and they end up winning a world championship. So to hear Doc Ellis and others say that's not in his personality. Now, maybe he wasn't a rah-rah guy, but he certainly was I'll show you how to be a professional every single day, show up, do your work, put the work in, and it will pay off, and it did.
Was that, and mind you, am I wrong? Didn't they used to have in 79, the players got the little things on their hat, like they got a stars on their hats or something? Because
yes.
Yeah, and that was
certainly
such a
the
cool
Pirates
thing.
did. The Pirates,
they used to
Kent
put little
Jacoby,
things.
Just like the Buckeyes.
If you did something really good, you got it. And I always thought that was so cool.
Well, as much as they're bemoaning how the Pirates are struggling, they end up winning the division. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good
They were
call,
a good,
Mark, yeah.
very, very good team. Mike Marshall, how about that, Billy?
Yes, 10 straight appearances. At one point, including 5 wins and 6 outings. With the season less than half over, he has worked in 50 games. That is...
He would end up pitching in 106 games, over 200 innings, newly acquired from the Expos, first year in L.A., and would win the Cy Young as a relief pitcher. But, I mean... We've never seen a relief pitcher like that. I don't know if they
ever again.
We never will again. No. But over 200 innings, and wasn't the guy that he didn't come in the 6th inning. I mean, I guess he did sometimes, but he was the closer.
Yeah.
So he was pitching the last 2 or 3 innings, a lot. My gosh, 10 games in a row. Could you imagine that?
Yeah, every day. Coming in to pitch.
Yeah.
Mike Marshall, and I think Scott, we might be able to promo a guest that's going to come up. Don't we have a Mike Marshall?
We do. In August 12th, 1974, Mike Marshall was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Unfortunately, Mike is deceased and no longer with us. But through hard work, as per usual, Bill has lined up a teammate of his off that team, one of the all-time L.A. Dodger greats, third baseman Ron Say. The Penguin will be joining us to talk about that team, Mike Marshall, and whatever else we decide to talk about with a guy that, I mean...
was sitting right there with him.
When you say the Penguin, you know who you're talking about.
But I'm saying, I wonder what Say's thought is. He's standing at third base, and here comes the same guy 10 straight days.
Right.
You're used to it. You expect it.
I know, but I'm saying that. But nowadays, though, I mean, because nowadays it'd be shocking. Back in those days, it was like, well, yeah, you have an arm, you can throw, get in the game.
Not a situational pitcher.
No.
What I found fascinating here is they were talking about Orioles' Jim Palmer, and he had been inactive since June 16th because of a sore arm. He was
1973 Cy Young Award winner.
Right.
Yeah.
He was placed on the 21-day disabled
I remember
list.
those.
Yeah. I don't remember
those.
that
the
disabled list used to be 21 days.
Yeah.
That's
I remember it was called the disabled list.
Right. It was the 15 and the 21.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They didn't have the 60-day, did they?
I don't think so.
I think it was 15 and 21, and they could extend it.
Yeah. Are you ready for the WFL? It is here. While the old established NFL was fretting about a players' strikes and picket lines, the upstart new league was displaying precocious professionalism as it prepared to launch its first season. I hated nothing more as a kid than talking about strikes. That was the absolute worst. Right. I didn't like it as a job. oh, here's sound from Donald Fair saying,
Oh God, yeah,
you know,
Marvin
we're,
Miller.
we're not playing. That's all I heard. Blah, blah,
And they
blah,
give you
not playing.
fake hope. Oh, there
Yes.
might be a breakthrough, and then be
Or they would just talk bad about, oh, the players don't understand. Then the player union would go, and the management's not saying, okay, I'm done.
It was weird because they struck for like 44 days, and then it ended up going to court, and it took 2 years to even settle that, so nothing really happened. But the WFL was trying to, take advantage of it, and they had a 12-team league. They were going to start in July 10th, play 19 weeks, no buys. And I remember those games. I remember watching the Southern California Sun playing, but the games would be like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, be like in the middle of the week, and they had the weirdest uniforms.
They'd already
like
sold
magenta and orange.
Already sold
weird.
20,000 season tickets to
Wow.
that Southern California team.
Did they really?
So they were getting, they had all the things in place for this
Yeah.
to work.
Yep.
They had fans that were interested. They had TV deals. They just, in the end, if you're, what's the old saying? If you're going to take a shot at the king, you can't miss. And
Right.
the NFL did not end up going on strike, or at least didn't
Right.
lose
Not
any
during
games.
the season. They lost a
because-
preseason
yeah.
game. Yeah.
Right. But can anyone name me who won that inaugural WFL season?
The
Showboats.
You're going to look it up, aren't you?
no.
Memphis.
No. They lost to the Florida
Blazers.
And the Florida
Jack
Blazers
Parker.
made it to the finals, but did not win the finals.
Wow.
They lost to the team and the game was actually played in this team's home field. So, that was
Oh.
right.
Good
Who?
that.
The Birmingham Americans.
Oh.
A hotbed for
A hotbed.
professional
When I
football.
think of football, I'm always thinking Birmingham.
Birmingham.
E. Joseph Wheeler Jr., owner of the Washington Baltimore franchise, now in Norfolk, Virginia, said, I evaluated Gary Davidson, who was the commissioner of the WFL, as a doer. And on July 10th, my evaluation is going to come true. That is the day the World Football League teams are going to play football. And on July 11th, 2 more are going to be seen on national TV. It will take an act of God to stop the WFL.
Yes.
And on the 8th day,
Yeah, they were done.
so it just didn't happen. I mean, it did, but for a short time, but it didn't last. He really has a big shot. This is about a guy named Jim Dent, big African-American guy. As you mentioned, Billy, grew up in Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah. Grew in Augusta, Georgia, and was a caddy because his brother was. So he was a caddy at the Augusta Country Club where they played the Masters. After the season's over, they would let the caddies play on the course. That was the only time, even though Jim Dent was a pro, he never made it to the Masters. The only time he played there was when he was a caddy.
Well, he was probably not allowed to play.
Yeah, no.
For a long
that's
time
That's
because
true
of
as
the color
well.
of his
I forget about
skin.
that.
Then, by the time he was professional, he was
a bit long hitter.
He was a long
He
hitter.
was the Happy Gilmore of those
Correct.
those days.
Correct.
And he actually had a decent career on the senior tour.
Yeah,
I think
very.
He won 12 times on the senior tour.
Yeah, I think I mean, he's doing just fine financially.
Yes, I mean he played in the PGA Championship and U.S. Open. He was a great golfer.
I think they said he won almost $10 million on the senior
I'll take
tour,
that.
right?
I'll take that. Yeah,
So,
I'd find a way to live with that.
Good for Jim. All right, we're just about done. For the record, Billy.
I just think it's funny because it seems to me Hubie Brown, even though I don't know him, has been in my life my entire life. And there he is. He's just turned 40, 1974. He's named assistant coach of the NBA Milwaukee Bucks. You think, what is he doing nowadays? Well, he's 90, and he's still doing TV commentating. So he's still in basketball. And if you hear him, he still sounds exactly as he did 30 years ago. So he just, I mean, a guy never gets old, it appears.
No.
And Mark, you were comparing him to?
I was comparing him?
You were comparing him to Bob Uecker.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
yes.
Thanks
yes,
for
'cause-
listening, Mark. We are
yes,
doing the
'cause-
show.
Yes. I was
Mark's
taking a
looking
cat
at,
nap.
there's some naked guy on that Mars that's streaking live.
I'm getting my streaking mind frame going.
Joking.
Yeah, no, because to have not just longevity, but to be effective in your longevity is very rare.
But if you say 90, we've all got about 50 years left.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
And more than that,
40.
and with Bob and Hubie is, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
Because at some point, I don't know if that's 60, 70, 80. I mean, these guys are very wealthy.
Yeah.
You could just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Why am I going to fly to Atlanta for a basketball game? You know why? Because I love doing
Yeah.
it.
I don't know if Euchre travels as much, but he still does a lot of the games.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 19th. Faces in the crowd. Faces in the crowd. I know, Mark, you got one.
Yes, Mark Wilson, who's 17, and he competes in the Fresno Relays for Monta Vista High in Danville, California. He cleared 7 1/3 in the high jump to better the national prep mark of Dwight Stones. And a flopper like Stones, it beat his previous best, had been 6'11". So he basically was this really good high school high jumper. And years later, they end up, his high school decides to do a initial athletic Hall of Fame. So he makes it. But you know who else was in that initial athletic Hall of Fame?
Tell me.
Zach Ertz,
Ah,
football player who was class of
Eagles, yeah.
2009, and Bob Myers, class
Oh,
of
yeah.
1993.
Warriors GM.
who would think just a small high school in Danville, California? Now, I'm not saying not many other students weren't really talented, but I'm
my
saying in the
sister went
athletic
there.
one. Did she really?
For like 3 months.
At high school?
Wow. Wow, that's
Why
pretty
is she
popular.
in the Hall
She's
of Fame?
not in the Hall of Fame.
She should
Yeah,
be.
why
This is
isn't
rigged.
she?
Well, probably because she didn't play sports. But I don't, we don't need excuses.
No, just get in the Hall of Fame.
We have a friend who's in the Westmount Hall of Fame, which is a school near Santa Barbara. She got in for tennis, but like Randy Fun's in there too.
Oh, former Laker coach. And
Billy?
then the last one was Mike Taylor. He played golf at BYU. His teammate was the legendary Johnny Miller. They're both in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame.
Nice. And then a 19th hole. Let's say goodbye, Billy.
Okay, 19th hole. From L. Robert Halkovich. He wants to congratulate Curry Kirkpatrick on his fine coverage of an introduction to the sport of racquetball. He's been playing racquetball at college at West Virginia for 3 years. When people ask how I whittle away my idle time after class, I reply, racquetball. They look at me as if I have two heads. Maybe after reading this article, people can now understand why I'm excited about this tremendous sport. By the way, Peggy Stedling might look like the substitute waitress at a truck stop, but there's no way I ever want to step onto the same court with her. So he ripped on the lady that's a really good racquetball player. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's back. That's what they do back in the day.
Curry Kirkpatrick will be our guest again for the second time since we started this venture next week when Jimmy Connors and Chris Everett are both on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Curry was a writer for SI for almost 30 years and covered tennis almost exclusively, tennis and college basketball.
And a very good friend of Chris Everett's.
Yes.
So that'll
be really fun.
Yeah.
So, all right, this episode comes out on July 8th, 2024, 50 years after the issue came out on July 8th, 1974, which is one day after I turned 6 years old. So, maybe going forward, I'll actually be able to remember some of the people that we have been talking about. But honestly, you don't have to have seen Arnold Palmer or Hank Aaron or John Havlicek play to know how great they were. Sports Illustrated did that for me as a kid, and we're doing that now for you 50 years later on the Past Our Prime podcast. It's sports history each and every week. So for Jeremy Ruby, our technical director, Bill Mahoney, and Mark Hoffman, I'm Scott Johnston. Have a great week.
You were
again.
8 when this issue came out? I was 14.
I was 10.
Finishing my freshman year of high school.
I was 5.
10.
Oh, I feel old.
5. Maybe just turned 6. No, I just turned 6.
Damn.